The bombshell news of last Friday, Noah Lolesio, the Wallabies starting 10, a person that played 11 of 13 test matches under Joe Schmidt in 2024, is off at the end of 2025. The destination not yet revealed, but Japan is most likely where he's going to end up. Matt Tamua, what do you think the ramifications are for the immediate 2025 British and Irish Lions?
I'd be very surprised if he wasn't in the I'd be very surprised if it impacted his selection, particularly with the Lions. I can understand Rugby Championship maybe, but surely we're doing our best we can to win this game. Like, there's no need to have one arm tied behind your back when going into a fight. So it's I don't know about you, but I just want the best team picked. I don't care where it's from, particularly for the Lions.
I'm completely with you. And to be fair, we've been pretty aligned with that kind of state of affair since we started doing this pod together more than 12 months ago. You've got to pick your best side more often than not, particularly when you've got a Lions here coming in July. The big series, the biggest series down under since 2013, since their last year, isn't it? So you've got to say it's slightly disappointing that he's off. He's 25. He's played 31 tests. There was a lot of investment from Joe Schmidt into him last year, and there's a home World Cup in 2027. So if you're scratching your head and you're going, how does a bloke who's in his mid-20s decide to go overseas when there's such a great kind of runway into this home World Cup? Surely this is the time where you want to be in Australia. Matt, bring us into a player's perspective. Why might someone leave?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because, like I said, it's a golden era in a way. Like, the opportunities in the next few years are amazing. But we're seeing, Jordan Petaia go to the NFL. We're seeing Carter Gordon go and play league. We're seeing Marky Mark as well. And then now Noah. It is interesting. I guess unfortunately it shows that they're not, that we're not in the best kind of situation, and our leverage point isn't as it's not as big as it used to be. It used to always be about the gold jersey. Now it's the world's a lot smaller. People, Jordan feels like he can fly to the US and play, and he's correct, I guess. So from Noah's point of view, from what I'm hearing, he wasn't offered the best contract from Rugby Australia, and I think that, coupled with missing out on the World Cup, he probably goes, it's time to bank something. I do also wonder, he's had a couple head knocks. I do wonder if that plays into it. I think from a personal point of view, I can completely understand him going. Your fortunes change so quickly in selection, and he knows that in his short career already. Yeah, and it was interesting. I think you reported that he mentioned Joe being the decision of Joe being a factor.
Yeah, I'll bring that in because it's a good segue. Thanks for doing that, Matt. Today, Noah Lolesio on a Monday faces the media down in Canberra and explains his decision. He doesn't let everyone in on where he's going. There's probably 2 or 3 clubs in Japan, Suntory being one of them, where he could end up. But he says, in relation to Joe Schmidt, who's obviously off in October following the Rugby Championship, the next head coach, his successor not yet appointed, that played into whether or not he's going to stay or not. He said, Joe not being here after the Rugby Championship definitely made it tougher for me to stay, to be honest. Just the unknown of who the next coach will be, and me potentially, if I do stay, then go through the whole cycle again. So what he essentially means by that is, look, he was in and out under Dave Rennie when he was handed his debut in Sydney in 2020, a test match you missed because of concussion, if memory serves me. And then when Eddie Jones came in, he was pushed to the sideline, and he came back in under Joe Schmidt. So very much in and out. It was stop-start under Rans. And he's found some continuity recently, but like the Tom Wrights, the Len Ekataus, who was sidelined for the World Cup in 2023, they're a bit scarred, I think, from not knowing what their fortunes are under the next coach. Because Ivisles Kiss, well, there's every chance that Les Kiss goes, you know what? I like Tom Lyon. I've been working with him for a couple of years. It's going to be a lot of Reds heavy players. We'll bring him, so maybe Liner becomes the preferred candidate with the World Cup in mind as well. So a fascinating one. It will kind of lend itself to a bigger discussion as we go through what our predicted Wallabies team or the Wallaby teams we would pick later on in this episode. If there was a British and Irish Lions match this weekend, we're going to come up with who we select, and I'm sure there's going to be one or two interesting talking points there. Before then as well, Patrick Pellegrini, the Moana Pasifika tan, who spent a long time in the Shoot Shield, he's going to be joining us on the podcast as well. And a lot happening in this round 8, just completed. The Chiefs and Reds in a ding-dong battle across the ditch. The Waratahs, well, they got dusted in the second half, didn't they, to Moana Pasifika? But the Western Force came back from behind to beat the Highlanders to put, once again, all four Aussie sides in the top 6 of the Super Rugby standings. If you can believe that, a lot more coming up on this, the Raw Rugby Podcast. I'm Christy Doran with Matt Tumor. Before we get into the action of the week just gone by, apologies that we didn't pod last week. Probably got to put my hand up here. I was on a flight coming back from Hong Kong, but I've got to admit, I would have struggled to have done it Monday afternoon anyway. Anyone that's been to Hong Kong and witnessed the wonderful lights of Hong Kong, the islands there, but also the sevens and then the action off the field as well. Wow, they'll know what I'm talking about. But it does take you a little while to get over that. Apologies, Matt. I know I kind of left you probably wondering, like, what's going on here on a Monday when it took quite a while for a text message to come through.
It did. I think the most disappointed person will be my mum because she likes to listen to this. So you've got to apologise to Karen, most unfortunate name in the last 10 years, poor mum. But yeah, mate, glad you're back. Somehow you got your son sick, though. That's weird.
That'll happen. Yeah, well, I can't even say, that wasn't my responsibility on this occasion. So I'm quite happy that I can just, totally watch that off cutter that goes down the leg side, and you just know that, you haven't touched that one, have you? But let's get back to Super Rugby before we digress too far. Chiefs and Reds, Friday night. That was, despite the weather, the elements, it was a cracking contest for much of the game. It was first, second, so you'd expect it. And I thought it lived up to what we hoped it would, despite the weather.
Yeah, 100%. And weather, and maybe the crowd was a bit disappointed by that. You wouldn't have known that it was 1v2, but I thought it was a ripper. Maybe not the first game you'll show someone who's a non-rugby fan, but in terms of the breakdown battle, all that kind of stuff, it was well and truly a proper game. And to be fair, the Reds looked like they might potentially do that. So it was good.
Well, let's be honest. It's the game that has got away from them. They, early right the way through the first half, but in the first 10 minutes of the second half, they dominated territory and possession, despite the fact that they were down to 14 with Jeffrey Tumlunga-Allen getting a yellow card for a dangerous clean out. Whether or not it deserved a yellow is probably another matter. But the elephant in the room, once again, penalties. It's clearly Harry McLaughlin-Phillips missed a couple of tough conversion shots from out wide, but he would be filthy that he couldn't just get the ball across the line after a great run. That was fantastic early in the second half. But in the wet, when it's raining, you're playing away from home. I know that they got an early try off the back of a rolling maul, but surely you got to bank points when it's right in front and it's 10-all and you're down a man.
Yeah. The down a man bit was I think I admire that they're overcorrecting and trying to find an identity and saying, we don't go for goal and all that. However, these are the games that you think later in the year when you've just got to win away from home, man in the bin, like soak up 90 seconds or however long you get now. Just take your time, get those points. I think that 100% was an error. But at the end of the day, like it's probably a good place to learn it in the sense of an away game against the Chiefs, that it's quite difficult. Like I hope that Tate and the decision makers are better for that, because it's a fine balance between exciting fans and really having identity and having a great ball ultimately. But then also realizing, look, we're down to 7 forwards. Maybe we should just, take the 3.
Yeah, so let's scroll back. In the first half, the Reds, they clearly turned down a shot early on, and they went to the side, and they had a maul that just got going from the outset, and they got 5 points. And that probably gave them the feeling that things were rolling, that they would have them on toast if they executed properly. And that's what they didn't do shortly after. So they went a couple of times in quick succession. Midway through the first half, you saw Zane Hilton throwing his pen slamming his pen because he was disappointed by seeing Joe Bryles transition from the ball hit Fraser McWright's head rather than his hands. So there was 2 breakdowns there where they let themselves down and let the Chiefs off the hook. But is this an Australian rugby thing? Like, I know the Crusaders at one point in time, not that long ago, were often kicking for touch, and that became a bit of their identity as well. But the Chiefs they generally always take shots when they're in front. And we think about this, like the Wallabies. There was a period in 2016 where you just left, you were playing up at Leicester, but Michael Hooper and the Checker kind of DNA was, no, we're going to back ourselves. Do you think that was the wrong approach, and do you still think it's the wrong approach just to be thinking like that?
Short answer, no. I think it's it's exciting. I think it's cool. It's a bit of a gamble, but I think you do have to then analyze a few things that change the decision, i.e., wet weather, yellow card, 2 foul attempts as well. It looks great that that they scored a try off the first one, but then if you look at, there's four goes there, that's 3 points each one, 12 points. Is that worth more than 1 try out of 4? So I think you've got to be pragmatic as well. But I honestly, I like it. I like the fact that they're having a go and they're not going to die wondering, and then you can temper it back. It's much better than this kind of timid approach to it, which I've been a part of teams where we've probably gone that route.
Well, the Rebels back in 2020, 21 certainly were.
Yeah, we had a pyramid we used to work off in terms of what wins games, and there was a big part of it was basically developed from Russie, and it was worked out from that, and it works. It particularly at an international level, but I think at Super Rugby you've got to. I just think it's almost against the good nature of it in a way. I don't know about you, but I want to see teams. Having a little bit of a crack, gambling a little bit, but then eventually learning, okay, maybe I don't go all in.
I thought that the Chiefs nailed it because, as I said before, the Chiefs take a lot of penalties. Damien McKenzie's often lining them up, and I reckon they do it more than any other New Zealand team. I'd have to check the stats there, but I'm almost certain. If someone else who's listening to the pod, please do so. But they nailed it in the second half. Not only 10-all. Scoreboard pressure. They take the 3 originally midway through that second half, having weathered the red storm. And then Luke Jacobson decides, you know what, it's 13-10. If we take a penalty here and then they score a converted try, they're in front. Let's play some territory. We've got the 3, so we've got the security net. Let's go for the hammer blow. And they got it. And that was, I think, fantastic judgment because they had the security blanket and then they did it. And it was a deflating blow for the Reds, and you just felt it. But the defeat aside, I actually thought they played some good rugby, and they'll come away with a lot of confidence. Yes, the Chiefs left a number of big guys on the bench, but they played big minutes in the second half. News that Wallace Atiti might be not too far away either, so he's another big person to come back. But I think the Reds they're going well. They've got a good set piece, generally speaking. Their scrum held up really well against the Chiefs. Their line out, I think that was Lucan Sokololoto's best game in a long while. He dominated the line out, particularly the defensive one, and then lots of tackles, carried the ball really well too. I was impressed by him as well as Joe Pryle. And and you being a former 10-12, I'm sure you would have appreciated Harry McLaughlin-Phillips' work.
Yeah, I do. I like the look of him a lot. He's got that tough nature about him. He needs to kick his goals though. He needs to be a bit more accurate with his play kicking as well. But he's got that. He's got a little bit of tough going, a little bit like Tane, but maybe he's got a bit more polish, which is potentially a good thing for him. But it's handy to have two good guys on the bench, two good 10s up there. I think if developed correctly, I would not be surprised at all if he wears gold at some point in his career.
Is it like you've got him there and Tom Liner there? We probably were surprised to see Tom Liner on the bench, but what's it like when how do you think that competition goes? You and Christian did it, but you both were at 10 and 12. What's it like if you're going to have one of you start and one of you come off the bench?
Yeah, I think
does that work long term?
Yeah, sorry. I think it's I don't think it does work long term. If I'm being honest with you, if one of them can play 15, I haven't seen much of him play, but I probably doubt that he'd be favoured at 15. McLaughlin-Phillips, and I reckon one of them goes ultimately. It was different. Christian and I was different in the sense that. I've said it quite a few times. We're very much a first five, second five, whereas all the teams are going a different way now with the midfielders. I reckon I wouldn't be surprised if one of them moves.
It's not a bad segue to be bringing in Patrick Pellegrini in a moment, because he's the person that's had to head across the ditch via Coventry, and he's probably done so because he came through at a similar point in time as a lot of other 10s that were playing junior Wallabies at the time in New South Wales, a person that spent a lot of time in the Shoot Shield, but he's doing great things across the ditch for Moana Pasifika. So on the other side of this, Patrick Pellegrini. Hey, awesome to have Pat Pellegrini here late at night in New Zealand at the moment, and awesome to have him spare some time. Pat, you must be sky high riding it at the moment, because Moana Pasifika, not just cooking on the field, but you yourself, you've exploded into Southern Hemisphere rugby over the last couple of months. How are you going? How are you finding it?
Nah, good. Loving it, eh? The boys are good. Culture's good, eh? Love the club, and a few wins recently helps as well. So it's going real good.
Do you think your time, you've travelled a fair bit, maybe more so than a lot of other guys. Do you think that helps a bit? Because, a bit of a loaded question. The island teams have often struggled with decision makers, and maybe having that experience has probably allowed you to win games differently and play a different way depending on the conditions.
I think for sure. I'm going over to England, the way they play. So I'm very different to what I kind of grew up playing and learning from club rugby and Shoot Shield and that. So I think it just, taught me a lot more kind of game management and that kind of side of the rugby. And then I guess it's helped coming over here to Moana now.
Hey, Pat, before we get to the weekend's game, a great win over the Tars, can you bring us into your journey, like where you went to school, your junior pathways, because I think you West Harbour into Randwick for a little while, and then up to Coventry. How did that all unfold, and what led you to go overseas in the end?
So I grew up playing league, actually. I went to a school, Morris Pagewood. So I grew up playing league and then kind of, transitioned to rugby. I was playing at Randwick, playing my juniors and that. New South Wales schoolboys. Then kind of after 20s, just decided to go to West Harbour. So I played Shoot Shield there for a couple of years. And I think it was during COVID that there was just no rugby over in Oz at that time. So, we had made the decision that I was playing rugby in England, just go have a crack at some lower grades, just get a bit of rugby in, and kind of just got noticed from Coventry from that lower grade. And then the 2 seasons at Cov, I was there before kind of making a few tests for Tonga, and then get noticed there, and Tana and manager managed to sort out a deal to get me to come over to NZ.
I'm sure you're happy to be away from the Midlands. It can be pretty dire there, I know, especially this time of year. But tell me, one thing I noticed that the commentators brought up during your game on the weekend was Moana's surge in the second half, and it was almost like they knew what was coming. And is that just by chance? Is it coincidence that you guys are lifting in the second half? Is there a bench input? Is there a fitness element? Once again, dare I say it, traditionally not a strong point of the island teams to be having that second wind. What's do you know what's caused it?
I think it's just we coming into half. We haven't started well in a lot of our games this year. And I think what we've done well is kind of when we got into half, just address the issues, and we've, come out and kind of just changed our mentality, and we've fixed whatever we needed to work on from that first half. And like you said, the Chiefs game started slow. Even the Hurricanes game, kind of real slow start. But we knew what we had to do, and once we come out, it was just about executing in that second half.
And I'm sure you get asked this a bit. Artie, he obviously the big signing in terms and has brought a lot of fans and a lot of excitement. What's he been like in the environment? Has he? It must be reassuring, like training with a guy like that who's literally one of the best in the world. What kind of impact has he had on the team?
Yeah, like I think it's just reassuring, like having someone with that experience, just kind of his confidence, and just know that he backs you and backs the team. If he believes it, then why can't we also? I think just having that confidence with someone like him is just massive for the club.
Yeah, do you get when his signing was announced, it was just like, wow, this is amazing! Like, what a statement, and what a thing for Polynesian representation. But did you guys, and I don't know if you had already signed on at that point in time, but what was it like when you went to training? Have you just seen the standards elevate? Is he one of those guys that's just an amazing trainer as well as on the park, or is he in the old school vintage of George Smith, who probably wasn't the best trainer, but unbelievable come the weekend?
Nah, yeah, he's a freak in everything, gym, on the field, and then just also, the study, learning the game, helping the boys out. He's just on and off the field, just massive for us.
So the weekend, huge come from behind win, as Matt said. It was fascinating. 29 points was the least amount of points you've scored this year. You can chuck another 45 or so on from the weekend. It's amazing the attacking prowess that's coming out of the side. What was it like taking on New South Wales? Because I imagine you would have known quite a few of those guys that you came up against on the weekend. And was there a bit of an axe to grind, or a bit of, I want to get one on these guys because I probably had to go the long way around to get to Super Rugby?
Yeah, definitely. That was a big part for me as well. I think coming into this game, I grew up playing New South Wales schoolboys, under 20s tars. Kind of the dream growing up was to play for the Waratahs. So then, to get the opportunity to play against them, the huge motivating factor to get the win as well. Also to go back to back, which the club hasn't done, but get the win over the Waratahs. And I do know a few of the boys as well. So to get that dub was massive.
I'm sure Matt will jump in a moment. Is there any kind of bitterness around how it played out? Because you've got the skill set, the crossfield kicks. There was a couple on the weekend as well. Like, is there a bit of annoyance that you had to actually leave to kind of get recognised in Super?
I mean, it's not. I wouldn't say bitterness towards Rugby Australia or anything like that. It's just kind of the way it is. It's a bit frustrating, that I did have to go the long way, but I'm happy where I am, and proud of the route I took to get here in the end.
One of the like bonding elements or parts of the Brumbies back in the day was that there was often people had to go the long way around. They didn't make it in Queensland or New South Wales. Is there a little bit of that with Moana? Is this kind of shared unity in the fact that you've all travelled a certain way, maybe not gone the predictable route, and then now you're shining? And then I can imagine, I actually thought of that Artie being there, him saying, you guys have the talent, you guys are awesome. That must just be reassuring from a guy who's played with the best players in the world and is one of them.
Yeah, definitely. You see like some of the stories of the boys, where they've come from, and the route they've had to take to get to Super Rugby and Moana. It's definitely a lot of different stories, and I think it definitely helps build that bond and that culture that we got here. And then like you said again, just Artie being there and giving us that confidence and reassurance is it's just huge as well.
What was the role that Sammy Wykes played in getting you? Someone told me last week that he might have been influential in you getting and taking the shot at Moana.
Oh yeah, my cousin, Sammy.
Is that right?
Yeah. He's my cousin. Yeah, yeah. He likes to take a lot of credit for that. So, I don't know. Depends who you ask, I guess. But yeah, he claims a lot of that. No, but he did help a little bit behind the scenes. To be fair, he especially with the Tonga stuff as well when that was first starting. So yeah, got to give him his raps there.
Have you played with many more exciting backs than Taumoi Falau?
No, he's probably up there. Eh? He's he's a freak athlete. He can really move. Yeah, he can do stuff. I haven't really seen before from some players, to be honest.
Okay, and this weekend you're up against the Blues. It must feel like it is a local derby, isn't it? It's probably the one that you circle in there. What's it going to be like?
Yeah, like you said, kind of derby. There's a bit of history there with some of the coaches and the players. So it's definitely one we're up for, and trying to go back to back to back, get 3 in a row. So it'll be a good one for sure.
And Tana as well, of course. He was previously there as the head coach. I'm sure he's got a bit like you. He probably feels that his coaching career might not have lifted as he wanted there, but it certainly is now. What's he like being under? Like, he's just a man that's got that kind of mana about him. He's one of the greats of the game, and you're now being coached by him.
Yeah, I mean, it's just unreal. Just to be coached by someone, like Tana, with his experience and that. It's a great privilege, and he brings a lot in terms of the culture and his experience and all that and his knowledge. So, it's a privilege to be coached by him as well.
Yeah, it's great. It's such a good opportunity for so many, obviously players as well, but coaches. And you think of, a great Islander coach, Stephen Jones or Sitaveni Jones. I'm sure you guys are calling him. Does he get a bit of stick for that?
Yeah, no, he goes alright. He's good. He buys in a lot to the culture and that, learn a bit of the language. So, but yeah, he's been good and good for me as well. Having he's got a lot of experience behind him as well. So having a 10 as our attack coach, helps me as well.
Yeah, but just before we let you go, mate, played at the World Cup there in 2023. The next one's in 2027, clearly on Australian shores. What can Tonga do? And what's it going to be like, Tonga in 2025? Pacific Nations Cup, of course, but what's the early talk in early April around what happens with the international program in this season?
Well, yeah, like I said, we got the PNC. Tonga's still yet to qualify, so I think we'll go into that after this Super Rugby season, and just play game by game, and hopefully get that qualifier out of the way pretty early, so we can focus on that World Cup goal, and go from there.
I'm sure you're going to love it. A big couple of years ahead and a big couple of weeks ahead for you as well. Hey, Pat, really good to speak to you. I've been having a fantastic season and you've certainly captivated the audiences so far this year. So thanks again and go well.
Sweet. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Pat. Appreciate you coming on.
Hey, great to have Pat Pellegrini, not just one of the best names in Super Rugby this year, but he's also playing great footy, isn't he? And how good was that chip and chase? Will Havili coming to the party as well. He's another talented player. Were you surprised by their second half resurgence? Because I'll tell you what, they couldn't have played worse in that first half, Moana Pasifika. I thought the Tars almost needed to be another try or two ahead. It was 21-7, I think, but it could have been more.
Yeah, I haven't been following their other games like really closely, but I just couldn't stop. I couldn't not notice the stat that they were talking about, the second half resurgence. And like I said, dare I say it, that was surprising because traditionally, you when you play the Big Island teams, you stick up, for the first 20 in each half, and then you're usually pretty good. Whereas it's the complete opposite. So flip the script, which is amazing. But disappointed for the Tars because I thought they were pretty decent as well. But I was a little bit surprised that Dan didn't go to his bench quicker, particularly around that 50 mark when you felt the momentum coming. That being said, when the bench did eventually come on, they weren't very good, and so maybe that's why Dan didn't go to them earlier. But I think in terms of knowing that they second half is a lot stronger, feeling that momentum of the game really start to switch, I thought that maybe it was time to kind of get some fresh legs on there and just change the narrative a little bit. So disappointing one.
Well, I'm with you. I think Dan Ethan Dobbins both played 52 minutes, and just before both went off, he got penalised at the scrum time, and I agree. I think he was probably 5 minutes too late there, and maybe you can see it like if you're in the contest and you're up in front, being able to bring a cannulla on for half an hour and go, just let rip for half an hour. This is what we want to see, the distractive cannula. Maybe there's some logic there, but it totally didn't go to plan, did it? And they capitulated, and they're in a bit of a hole at the moment. Like they're still in the top 6, they're hanging in there at the moment, but it just seems like the wheels are very much starting to fall off at the moment. Like, is there anything you put it down to? Like, there's been lots of chopping and changing, particularly in the halves, especially at Lawson Crotton's had a bit of an extended run now at 10, but been lots of changes at 12 and at 13, at fullback as well. It does seem like the fluency hasn't quite been there. The connection wasn't there in the defence on the weekend either. What have you kind of picked up?
Yeah, look, ironically, I actually thought their attack, they were just passing the ball a lot more than they have in the past. That they were really trying to shift the point of attack, which I found quite interesting. I'm quite critical of them early on, albeit they won their games, but they were very one-dimensional, and maybe that suited a guy like Lawson Crichton over Tane. But then on the weekend, I was like, they're really trying to shift the point of attack a little bit more, go to the edges a little bit more. So that was actually a little bit exciting. Yeah, I agree with you in terms of that. They're in a bit of a tough period. I wouldn't say it's by any means, like wheels off or anything like that. I just think they need to win again. Yep. But some consistency there. The reason they won their first few games was their 2-man tackles, their ability to score off mauls, really physical, that kind of stuff. And I felt like on the weekend maybe they tried to expand that, and that comes with a little bit of a cost, unfortunately. But the parts that were disappointing, like I said, was the bench, the line out, things like that in the second half that really didn't help them.
No, it certainly didn't, and it doesn't get easier. The Chiefs on Friday evening, good luck stopping them, and they're a team that will play a lot of rugby, there's no doubt about it. The Tars will be desperate that guys like Dave Breck come back, a lot of experience, always makes his tackles, generally hits the spot with the line out. A bit of an issue on the weekend. And I'll tell you what, Moana Pacifica's scrum, keeps holding up. It keeps surprising me every week that they're in the contest in the 50, 60-minute mark, and we started to see what they could do against the Highlanders a good month or so ago. Like even right back at the beginning, we thought that the Western Force and it was about 1,000 to 1,000, and the Force ended up winning. We all thought, what's this say about the defence? And then a week later against the Reds, they didn't look that great. But maybe you've just got to tip your hat to go, Moana Pacific is actually turning into a very dangerous side for anyone. And they've clearly, they beat the Hurricanes, they beat the Crusaders. So good luck to anyone coming up against them anytime soon. Hey, one side that is looking pretty at the moment is the Western Force. A good come-from-behind win after they were well and truly beaten out of the gates by the Highlanders, who played some lovely rugby, some kicks in behind, which caused some headaches for the Force's back three. But in the end, too good, the Force. And they a couple of years further along in their evolution than, say, the Dan McKellar's Waratahs, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. And we spoke about this early on, and the Reds as well, been a year later as well, and benefiting from that. That I think that was a huge win. I really think Perth is becoming a very, very difficult place to win. It was funny watching that game. I was thinking, at the end of the game, I was thinking, a few years ago we would have been losing our minds over beating a Kiwi team, but whereas now this was kind of almost half expected. The Highlanders have shown that they've got a lot about them this year as well. So I think it's awesome. It's great. They've really, really beefed up their pack. They're playing a lot more physical. It's exactly that. It's the evolution of their game. They've got a little bit of a plan B now. They look good, exciting.
It's not rocket science. Rocket science, rather. You get a forward pack, you get some physical abrasive back rollers like the Nick Champion to Crepneys, and you're able to bring on a Will Harris off the bench, who had a great second half cameo. You've got Tom Robinson and Marley Pearce doing some stuff up the front, Brendan Payne-Ramosa, and then a good second row pairing in Jeremy Williams, Darcy Swain. So I'm always staggered when it takes a long while to build a team, but the Waratahs have brought back Matt Phillip, a good piece of signing for the Waratahs for 2026. But I don't know how you don't have just out-and-out second rowers. The Tars and the Force had been going hybrid kind of back rowers and having to play and be stopgaps. So nice to see the management side come to the fore. And then Nick White is a crafty, cunning kind of customer who's always into it. There's almost old school Brumbies in a way with how they're going with their rolling more at the moment. I just remember Dave Pocock getting on the end of about 1,000 in 2015, and that's Carlo Tizzano now, isn't it? He is just in outstanding form, but all elements of his game too. Yeah,
I agree. He's obviously scoring a lot of tries. A lot of them haven't been necessarily easy as well. He's found the way to the line. He's very strong in around that area, and they seem to not always just get the ball to the back of the maul. Sometimes they keep it in the middle and go through that. It's quite an interesting tactic, which I haven't really seen too often. And it also comes with a bit of risk. But I think they're in a good spot. I think they're going to be very, very difficult to beat over there. One of the structural challenges of playing in Perth is that the travel becomes so difficult. Winning away becomes so difficult. But I think they're building correctly, and people were saying this. Nick was saying this to me for a while, that they're building something pretty good there. And Cronny's quite a sharp operator. So, yep, he's done well, and it's exciting because, like I said, it's kind of it's cool because you watch a game usually later, an extra game of footy, and then it's kind of cool seeing an Aussie team win as well.
You're not wrong about that. Mac really continues to impress. I reckon he's been I don't know about the signing of the year because I think that might be Nick Champion to Crepney, but from an Australian perspective, but they're all playing their part. Harry Potter is just elusive. He's probably deceptively quick as well. He doesn't look like the fastest, but he's got his knack of finding his way to the try line. And they did make hard work of it in that second half, I've got to say. 29-20, it should have probably been 45-20, given how much territory and possession they had. Couldn't land the killer blow, but sides find way to wins, and they did that on the weekend. And and Will Harris, great performance there. So they are in the top 6. How long they last there? Probably not for much longer. They've got a bye this weekend, which means that they've got no points, unfortunately, from their perspective. But then the Hurricanes and then a couple of matches across the ditch as well before welcoming the Brumbies. So they've got a really difficult 5 weeks. If they can get 2 wins out of there, they'll be pretty happy with themselves going forward. All right. I think we're halfway through the Super Rugby season, Matt. Let's talk Wallabies. Let's lay the ground rules out. Are we picking a team if it was to be played this weekend, and we're picking anyone that played for the Wallabies last year, like the Will Skeltons, the Crevies, are they all in the mix, or are we picking what we think the first test side would look like?
No, we're coach selectors, and the Lions have they've boarded that new jet that gets in with no stops, so they're coming next week, and I reckon we're picking our team if they were playing next weekend.
Okay, so Brisbane first test, it's not going to be July 19, it's going to be something like April 15 or so. All right, well, let's get into it. Are we going to start with the forwards or the flashy backs where everyone generally starts?
Nah, let's go the forwards. We just spoke about how important they've been. Let's go forwards. One's easy though, isn't it?
Yeah, we don't even really need to say it, right? Angus Bell, surely?
Easy. He's one of a few world-class players I think we have at the moment. He's awesome.
Okay. All right. I will let you go first with your selections, and I'll jump in when I've got a difference.
All right. So Matty Fessler is my starting hooker. I think Allen's really in some form now, so I'd pick Allen at tight end.
I agree with you.
Oh God, this is going to be one of those ones again, eh?
I reckon there'll be a difference or two, surely.
Yeah, I reckon as well. I'm going Lucan and Will Skelton in the row.
Oh, okay. So the first test, you would go Lucan and Will Skelton.
Yeah, I want the Lions are going to try bully us, and I want some guys that they think twice about.
Okay, that's interesting. I've got Skelton in and amongst it, but not to start. Look, I'm going Nick Frost and Lucan Solakailoto. I think the height of Frosty having an extra line-out jumper in their traditional one, I'd go those two.
Yep. So then my back row will be a little bit controversial. I'm going my favourite, Sarah Uru, Fraser, and Rob Valentini at 8.
Right.
Controversial, okay. I know, considering our captain or current incumbent captain. But, I think Fraser's a lock in. He's, Tizano's been amazing, but I'm picking him. I'm going Seri because Will in my back row, so not a huge jumper, well, huge, but not a big jumper, and so I need a bit of extra height.
There's some good method to this madness. I appreciate it as well. Look, I'm sticking to Bobby Valentini's only played a couple of games because he come back from a hamstring injury, but I still think I've seen enough of him to go. If you're picking a side and form, I'm picking him. Like, it was a great ding-dong battle with Langy Gleeson when he first came back.
Yeah.
But I'll go Valentini and Rick Wright. I'm certain Tizano will feature in the Lions series. I just don't know about the first test. I'm going Wilson. Like, how good was that left foot grubber on the weekend? I know it's just it's not the stuff that's going to win you a Lions series, but blimey, he does have a pretty good skill set.
Oh yeah, I think he'd be in terms of my team, he's the most hard done by. It's just more for me. It's makeup of the back row. I think against Lions, it's going to be scrum more line out, and I think Rob Valentini and Harry starting. I get a bit nervous about that.
Yeah, okay. And is there something about Sarah Uru that you like in particular? Like, we've talked about him. He's kind of farty-esque, but what he can do. But he does seem like he's got more physical over the years as well.
Yeah, I think so as well. Like I said, I like his on-ball presence. I think that's important. I think we're going to need to be good on the ball to slow them down. I really like him. I think it would have been boring 15 if I didn't pick him. The other one I actually thought of was Champion de Crepney, and I thought about potentially starting him as well, purely for height, physicality. So I did actually mull over that for a while, but I've gone with Sarah.
Okay. We'll move off the background in a moment, but Champion de Crepney's in my squad at the moment. He is the bruiser. Like, he's come from the clouds from an Australian rugby perspective with what he's done so far in this first 8 weeks. He just hits hard. He's made his name in France, a few years up there. He knows what it's like to go physical. All right, what about the halves?
The halves, I am going. I would pick Nick, but I can't because everyone will call me biased. But I'm going with Tate and Donaldson.
Okay.
Who are you going with?
So tell us why. Because I would go Tate and Liner on form. I would go Tate and Liner. I think the for a combination perspective as well. But I like a person who more often than not kicks their goals. He does that, and I think the combo is important.
Yeah, I think Liner for me is a year early in terms of physical stuff. I'd go. Donaldson's got because we're obviously, the elephant in the room is that neither of us has picked Noah. So for me, it's then about, okay, who can deal with that sort of pressure, Lions. At least Donaldson's had a World Cup, albeit not a great one in terms of the team's performance, but he shone pretty well over there. So I think it's just a little bit safer.
So we're picking this on form, and we're not kind of trying to overanalyze what's going to happen, because realistically, I don't think Tom Liner's starting at 10, but I think from what he's shown so far, but Noah, and now that we're on the subject of 10s, Noah would have had a fair bit of money in the bank from what he's earned last year. I still think he's the 10 at the moment. He's had a pretty poor start to the season, and I think you'd admit that. He obviously missed a few matches because of a head knock as well. Is it 50-50 now, you think, or is it all completely open, or do you think Noah's still just ahead realistically, given what he's kind of done in the past?
The difference being that, say, Rob Valentini is being injured as well, but he's got more money in the bank ultimately, and he's shown that. Noah, I think, progressed really well last year, like had his best games on the end of the year tour. That being said, I don't think he's a lock-in. For a few reasons, but I think I back him to actually play well in the second half of the year and get picked. I think he will do that. However, I do get a little bit nervous. One thing I think I messaged you about was his ability in the air, because if he's not defending front line and he's going to be in the backfield a lot, his ability in the air currently is the worst out of all the 10s in Australia. And the Lions know how to target that. They'll have kickers, left footers, right footers, box kickers, and they will find Noah. So I think that's something that he needs to shore up. But that being said, he's not. I think he will end up playing well. I really do. But at the moment, I wouldn't pick him.
The other one being Jack Gordon. He's the guy that really came into his own, I think, last year for the Wallabies in the 9 jersey. He'd obviously been out injured for a while, so obviously if you're picking this team on form, you can't really, because he hasn't played because he's been injured. Do you still think that Tate's out at the moment, or would you go realistically? Do you think Jake will come back right into the mix for that number 9 jersey?
I don't want to spoiler alert, because I do. He is in there, but I've used him. I've used him as a different thing. I think that both will potentially be the 2 9s. Just in what way, I don't know, but yeah.
Okay. All right, let's go into the midfield then.
Middies, I'm going Lenny at 12 and Filippo at 13. I think Lenny. I think they've been the standouts ultimately. Both of them. Lenny has been great. First game a little bit not great against the Force, but I think he's really stood up since then. And Filippo's been the best player from an Australian point of view, and I I think I spoke about this a while ago. His ability on the ball to slow down breakdowns is huge. And I would even think about defending him at 12, have Lenny defend at 13, where he's very comfortable. And then ultimately Filippo can slow down the breakdown first phase. So, yeah, that's I get excited by that centre pairing too, to be honest. I actually really like it.
I reckon, and I'm actually with you here because I reckon Danguno is the most improved player in Australian rugby from where he's, from where he started out. Like, he's always had the ability to finish tries, but he also had that probably every second game he was walking yellow card or he'd do something clumsy or reckless. I think he's kind of not completely eradicated that from his game, but the on-ball presence is he's the one guy in Aussie rugby who genuinely gets on the ball all the time. We saw it on the weekend. He probably wasn't at his best against the Chiefs there, but that was difficult. I would have played him at 13 on the weekend. He was pushed to the wing. I'm going him at 13. I do want to see Lenny Katau 12 for the Brumbies. I'm not quite sure why it's not happening enough. Ollie Sampson spends a lot of time there when David Fellua is not. But I think for both the Australian Wallabies point of view, I think, and the Brumbies, I think the more you get Ikatau in the middle of the field, the better. But we're not the selectors, we're not the coaches, are we?
We should be. Who have you got in the back three?
All right. I originally had Max Jorgensen, but he's out injured, so we can't have him in there. And that's why I've got Joseph Kusuali on one wing, got Tom Wright at fullback, and then the other wing I would have at the moment probably an Andrew Kellaway but I think Dylan Peach has been superb. But I'm just going the security of a Kellaway in the backfield.
Yeah, so I've gone Suali'i at 15, Tom Wright at 14, but playing two fullbacks. So I'd defend Ben Donaldson in the front line, but I'd play two fullbacks essentially because, I think that's important. And I'm going Corey Toole on the left sting. I know, I rate him, and I think he's 100% got X factor that he will finish anything that is remotely a chance. So I'm picking him. And on the left wing as well, left wingers always score a bit more tries because of the right to left pass. So making sure he's there, which I was critical of him being on the right wing for Brumbies last year. But I'd go him on the left sting, Righty and Suali'i as the two fullbacks.
Yeah, okay. I like it. And look, Corey Toole, there's been one or two probably, I don't know about reckless, but it's almost like that, just probably a fraction technical technique that he needs to improve there. He's clearly trying to be more involved and engaged in the aerial battle, but that's an element that he needs to keep working on. But his quality, and he can finish better than most. So I like the call. And I'm going to say, Matt, you've got a more exciting 15 than I do. I don't know if it'll be anywhere near the side that's going to get picked.
No, I don't think it is, but I don't think I've picked it for headline sake. I genuinely, like I said, I like Righty. I like Suali'i as my two fullbacks, good in the air, which they'll get tested on. And I like Corey Toole as a finisher. He's someone that the Lions will review. They'll be like, don't give this guy, he's got gas, and he brings a bit of, uncertainty about it, which is the same thing with, Will Skelton as well in the middle. And I just, for me, it's a balance thing. So I like it. I honestly got really excited picking this team. I was like, oh, I like this. But there's a reason I'm doing podcasts and not picking teams, really.
All right, let's quickly move on to the bench. We'll run through it a bit quicker.
Go. Yeah.
What's your replacement front row?
Front row, I'm going Richie Asiata, Alex Hodgman, and Tom Robertson.
Wow. Okay, this is a side that's picked on form. I like that. That's exciting. Yeah, you've actually Richie Asiata's not got there for me. I like what he's doing, but his line out throwing needs to work, and I think he's got to hit some targets. So I've gone BPA. I'm going Blake Shop. I think he's done a great job off the bench recently for the Brumbies. This isn't if we're picking on form. I think Hodgman's a good shout as well. And on form, I can't pick Taniela Tupou. I know he's going to. You've got to have him in the squad, and I expect him to get better. But I don't have Tupou in there at the moment. I've gone Tommy Robinson as well on form, just ahead of Nongor. But I do want to see Taniela kind of re-emerge because it is just so important to get right for the Wallabies to have a chance against the Lions, I think.
Yeah, I agree. But at some point, we've got to draw a line in the sand and say you don't get special treatment anymore. I like the idea of Nongor. I'd probably think about that because I do really like how the Reds have been. And I think having a few combinations there would be important, i.e. Asiata, Hodgman and Nongor as your reserve front row. But I went with Robbo just because he's had a bit of time, but it probably was a line ball.
Yeah, cool. Okay, I've gone Will Skelton as my replacement second rower. I've gone Laney Gleeson in there as well. Your extra forwards?
Yep, I've gone a 6-2. So I've gone Nick Frost, I've gone Tizano, and I've gone Harry Wilson as my 6 forwards.
Yeah, cool.
Once again, I think it's going to be a forward battle. I love the idea of Tizano coming on, slowing that break down, Frosty, any loose ball, and Wilso because he was a bee stick from starting. So
can't blame that either. I'm going Ben Donaldson. I originally had a 6-2 and then I rubbed it out. And I'm now starting to think twice about it. I've gone with Ben Donaldson and Jake Gordon as my replacement halves there. Teddy Wilson's in seriously good form, though. I think he's a really good young prospect. I like the look of him. I just don't think that'll happen for the Lions. And then outside back cover, I've gone Corey Toole as well for that. Fun times there doing that. I don't know if it'll be anywhere near that, by the way.
You haven't asked me for mine.
Okay, go for it. Hit me.
So 6-2. So I've gone Jake Gordon to cover the halves. I think he could play 10 if he needed to. And I've gone Andrew Callaway, can literally play any position in the back line except 10. I think he would be great there. Donaldson can also cover 15 if he needed to, but I think I'd be willing to take that risk with an extra forward, considering the threat that the Lions have.
There's going to be a lot of those threats, and I'll tell you what, the European Champions Cup at the weekend, big score lines. I appreciated Brett McKay's tweet out there on the weekend when he did a screenshot of the results from the weekend, and he kind of brought up so Super Rugby isn't Super Rugby can't defend, right? And you look at the 70 being put on Saracens from Toulon and 60 odd nil from Leinster over Harlequin. Some wild results there. Did you get happen to look on social media, by the way, of the parachuter delivering the ball at Toulouse on Sunday night, Monday morning?
Oh, God, I didn't. I was expecting it to be San Francisco.
Oh, got stuck on the sideline. They had to bring in the fire truck to get him down because he was the one of the 3 that didn't get down. Some of the funniest scenes you'll see, thank God nothing happened, but it was a packed house at that point in time. They don't miss the start line, do the Frenchies. And do check it out, widely over social media. And I know that our friend Charlie Morgan wrote about it as well. There was a few travelling Brits there for the game and for Toulouse and Ulster. So, yeah, good scenes up there. Super W semi-final action done and dusted. It'll be the Waratahs and the Reds. I watched a fair bit of it, and the Tars, too good. They probably let the force back in there on Sunday afternoon at Leichhardt, but too good in the end. And then the Reds in a high-scoring affair against the Drua. It's been so great to see Charlotte Caslick do her thing there as well. Just has taken to that like a duck to water. And then in the sevens, the men not so good in Singapore off the back of their third place finish in Hong Kong. The women once again going down to the final. But Maddie Levi, did you see the defensive work by Maddie Levi in the final? It was unbelievable where New Zealand way too good in the end. The inexperience showed, I think, for Australia. But Levi tackles the New Zealander basically 2 meters, a meter out from the line. Momentum takes them over, and she manages to rip possession away in the one kind of action and then scamper away 25 meters she made. It was unbelievable. And she, 200 tries now she has in the World Series. She's only, 22, 23. She's going to be one of the greatest Australian athletes, full stop, I think.
I couldn't believe how young she was. I expected 27 because, we've obviously seen and heard about it for quite a while now. So I get excited. Hopefully she dips her toe into 15s as well around World Cup time, particularly at the home World Cup. That would be unbelievably exciting. But, she is amazing. And what a woman to have promoting our game. And I think we always worried about after Charlotte, maybe we'll struggle a bit, but she's well and truly carrying that baton along.
Yeah, well, and also you got to tip your hat to people like Tia Hines there, Mackenzie Davis, a lot of young talent coming through, and that's a really pleasing thing. You can get to a final without having Charlotte Caslick amongst many others in the last 2 tournaments. You're doing a really good thing. So shout out to the Sevens teams doing a great job. Hey, Matt, great to pod. Good to have Pat Pellegrini on there. Big weekend ahead, particularly, we know that the Tars Chiefs, but the Reds and Brumbies. And I'll tell you what, there's a coach not too far away. I reckon it is, if it's not signed, sealed and delivered at the end of this week, I think early next week there'll be an announcement that Reds are having a bye. It does seem like the stars are aligning. Stuart Lancaster, his name's not going away. I tell you what, I wrote about that at the Raw a couple of weeks ago to get that news out there that he was well and truly in the mix. I still think he is. The two of them, who knows what happens there, but watch this space. It'll be fascinating. You'll get all that on the raw.com.au. Please rate, review, give us a shout out on Twitter. I know I ran into a lot of people up in Hong Kong that listen to the pod. And that was good fun. It was not so good fun having to report on the games, but it was great catching up with you guys. So anyway, next time, and we'll do it again in a week's time. Thanks, Matt.